Welcome to Battletested with Tanya Acker.
Keyonna Monroe
is the founder of Love Yourself First and Pretty2Me. And those are organizations that are born out of the most harrowing experience that a young woman could have. Keyonna didn't just live that horror, she survived it. And with that, she is helping other women not just survive, but thrive. Here I am with Keyonna Monroe. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the podcast, Keyonna Monroe. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You are the multi-award-winning executive producer of the 2024 documentary, A Time to Yell. You are a Spelman grad, and I'm always happy to welcome another member of the HBCU family. You are the founder of Pretty2Me Foundation and the Love Yourself First project. And your passion for these organizations that you started really springs from an experience that you yourself had as a survivor of sexual abuse and sex trafficking. You started Pretty2Me and Love Yourself First because you were volunteering at your son's middle school and you saw something in these little girls that reminded you of yourself and of your childhood trauma. Tell me what you saw.
My organization is very near and dear to my heart. And I always thought it's important to be the change that you want to see. And the best way that I could do that is to work towards something that I have knowledge about and that I'm familiar with. And I'm a big believer that love can heal the world. And so teaching kids at an early age to do that, building their self-esteem, sense of self-concept, self-worth, and value. Also teaching them how not to look outside themselves for validation and a sense of belonging. That way, when you have kids that transition from elementary to middle school, which is a difficult transition on its own, you don't easily shapeshift and conform and shrink and try to figure out who will accept you and where you can fit in. You are confident within yourself and you let people come to you that fit with you. And that at that time, you have to discover your sense of self. And that takes time and it requires support.
One of the things that you talk about and that you just mentioned, the vulnerability, the looking for validation outside, and the work that you do now to try to get girls to look inward instead of outwardly for validation, really arises, as I understand it, from your very powerful story, from what you learned from your own experiences as a survivor. What was your first experience? And I'm not asking for details, but how old were you when you first became aware of being abused?
Five. And not I knew something bad happened to me. I just wasn't sure. And because I wasn't believed and my story was shifted due to my mom's discomfort and family's discomfort, that I almost thought maybe this didn't happen or maybe I'm incorrect, but I carried this very, very heavy secret at a young age.
Was it a family member?
It was not a family member the first time. It was actually the brother of my mom's boyfriend at that time. And I was left to be babysat with him.
When you were aware that something happened, did you tell anyone?
Yeah, I told my mom because I actually blacked out and completely checked out because of the traumatic pain of it. And when I shared it with her, I was not believed. I literally was told that that did not happen. Don't make things up and do not tell anybody things like that.
And this is when you were 5.
Yeah. But I knew something was wrong because when I was put in the bathtub right after, everything, it burned, it stung. It was very painful, very painful.
And so you tell your mother, she doesn't believe you. It is her boyfriend's brother, I think you said, who did this thing to you.
Mm-hmm.
And she tells you not to tell anybody else. And you're a very young child.
Mm-hmm.
Do you follow that instruction? Do you tell anybody else, or do you just keep it quiet?
No, I kept it quiet because the last thing I wanted to do was get in trouble for doing what I was told to do.
When I asked you if it was a family member just a few minutes ago, you said not that time.
Correct.
Were there other instances of abuse by other adults in your life?
Yeah. My uncle raped me from 9 to 11, and that was in the family. And I also had a cousin who unfortunately molested me every time I went over there. And what people don't understand, and it's something that it took me a little while to learn and realize, is when a child comes to you and tells you something happened, when you don't believe her and you teach her, right, not to believe her own gut and her own mind and her own voice, you kind of silence it for her. And you condition your kids to not speak up for themselves and to keep secrets and to start circulating a lie for your own comfort versus the honesty of what happened to them, which is what they have to start advocating for at an early age.
How old were you when so you said it was so 5 is the first instance, and then between 9 and 11, you're being regularly assaulted and molested by family members.
Mm-hmm.
Given your mother's reaction to that first instance of abuse that you remember, did you tell her about these later instances, or did you tell anybody else?
Actually, she believed me the second time. So when I told her about my uncle, she believed me. Unfortunately, when we went to my grandmother to tell her, because at that time, that's who we were living with, the conversation that we had with my grandmother did not go the way I expected it to go or the way my mother expected it to go. I could see her disappointment because the questions that were asked were, what were you wearing? What were you sleeping in? And then you have to start covering up more. You can't wear that kind of nightgown to bed. Let me talk to him, but don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody anything like that. You don't tell family business. You don't bring shame. And they'll deal with it. But that's, even though it was believed by my mother, it didn't keep the assault from happening repeatedly.
So your mother knows,
Mm-hmm.
your grandmother learns of it. It sounds like it's not like she disbelieved you. She's just blaming you for some grown man assaulting you. And you're, again, 11 years old at this time? This is 11?
9.
9. You were 9. So you're 9, and grandma's not saying you're making it up. Grandma's saying you need to change what you wear to bed.
Correct.
What's happening in your 11-year-old brain as one set of authority figures is actively harming you, and another set of authority figures are not really doing anything about it or doing anything to protect you? How is your 11-year-old brain, well, I should say 9, from 9 to 11, and then even earlier than that because of the earlier incident, but what goes through your head in a day? Like when you wake up, are you expecting these things to happen? Do you look for other ways to protect yourself? What's happening in your head as a little girl?
So the interesting thing about that is the uncertainty of what to do, who to share it with, and why is this happening to me? Is this supposed to be happening to me? Is this happening to anybody else? I had a cousin who was also being sexually assaulted, and at least it was some level of comfort, and we kind of told each other. So it was kind of a quiet secret that we kept to ourselves, and we were both told not to share anything. So at least we had each other. However, it's it's hard when the uncle that did it was like one of my favorite uncles. You know, he's the one that I would sing with, and he taught me how to salsa and dance and all of those good things, how to cook. And that was in the daytime. But at night, when he's drunk, I get a completely different version. And when he wakes up, he doesn't remember. It's almost as if what happened the night before didn't happen, and I have to go to school per usual and do what I'm supposed to do. What I did was try to out earn my experience. And so I calculated how many A's do I need to get, how many accomplishments do I need to have, achievements and so on and so forth, winning awards and doing plays and being just like a phenomenal student, because then that would bring a level of pride to my family. I thought I wasn't deserving of being taken care of. I didn't think I was deserving of being protected. And it's just something that happens. It's just something that happens. And when I get older, then I can explore my own life and, you know, do my own life. The hard thing is having it be a family member that you can't say anything about what happened to them or anybody else, not even to any of like my aunts or my other grandparents on my dad's side. I couldn't tell them either. So it's a heavy, heavy, heavy secret. And that's a lot to give to a kid.
And I think what you said about your cousin,
Mm-hmm.
who was also a victim. So the two of you had this solidarity and a shared secret. And so on the one hand, at least you had that support. But on the other hand, it's almost like this was becoming normalized in the family. Like these young women may be sexually brutalized, don't tell the family business, and watch what you wear at night. Like it almost sounds like in your head, you got used to it in some way. Like, this is the best I deserve. So I got to go to school and get straight A's and try to earn a way to or earn the right to a better life.
Mm-hmm. Or protection.
And earn the right to protection, which I think is a key part in the next component of the story, because you're now a young adolescent, 11, 12 years old, and you're in school, and you fall in with, as so many young people do, you fall in with the wrong set,
Mm-hmm.
we'll just say.
Mm-hmm.
Were you being bullied in school as a kid?
I was. Again, that transition going from elementary school to middle school, I was looking for a sisterhood. I also wanted to fit in and have a sense of belonging. And I made one really, really good friend. And we were both bullied, but it's kind of like a shared trauma that we went through. And unfortunately, her parents checked her out and left me by myself to deal with that. And it's not anything I'm not familiar with, right? So I'm born and raised in South Central. I grew up in a drug-infested, gang-infested environment. It didn't scare me, didn't shock me. I was raised in this, so I was accustomed to that. And the girls that were bullying me were part of a gang. And the only thing that I could do is to join that, or I was going to be getting my butt kicked every day. And my desire to want to fit in and think maybe this will be the protection that I get. because maybe they won't fight me, they'll fight for me, or they'll fight with me. And I would rather have that on campus. And that's how I end up joining a gang and getting involved with the wrong crowd in middle school.
And that crowd also set you on a path of even more, of being victimized by even more sexual abuse and sexual trauma. This, at now 12 years old, becomes your introduction to being not just abused by this group of folks that you know at home who are in your family or close to it, but now you are being introduced to the world of sex trafficking. You are being trafficked. How did that start?
Not having anybody to talk to, I used the opportunity to share with one of the girls that I thought I was close to. And for a second, I didn't think that she liked me, but I think she had some shared trauma. And when I shared my story, we kind of had a trauma bond with that. Unfortunately, me sharing that information with her and saying that no one helped me, no one protected me, no one looked out for me, it was kind of a sweep under the rug and don't bring any shame. That was used against me. It was weaponized against me, unfortunately. And she ended up telling her boyfriend that, which is what we call a Romeo or La Chamere. And it is a younger boy who can get on campus without red flags because he's considered a kid. So he was about 16 years old and we were 12. And so we looked at him like, oh, he's cool. He's old. I was like, oh, he's older. He's really cool. But they brought me to a house. We ditched school. And I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to ditch. I'm going to go to McDonald's. It's not far. And then I'll just, come back, do my homework, so on and so forth. And it didn't end up like that. And unfortunately, I knew when I walked in the door. There's a knowing when you walk into a room or walk into a situation and you can feel and sense danger. Right? So walking in, there's men, there's heroin, there's cocaine, powder all over a table, weed all over the table, bottles of beer and weapons. And it's like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to get out of here, but I'm in trouble. There is no leaving and just going back to school. And my life changed drastically after that. And she knew what she was doing. And he knew what he was doing by bringing me there.
You ditch school with your friend. You end up at this house where there are drugs and weapons and adult men. And again, as a reminder to everybody, you are 12 years old at the time. What happens next? You're there with these people, like with these men. You can't leave. Do you want to leave? Do you ask to leave? Do they let you leave? What's the scene?
I didn't have a say. I didn't have enough time. They knew why I was there. They knew I was brought there. And they just immediately say, oh, she'll do, she'll work. Go try her out. I was assaulted by multiple men, including some of the women that were there. So leaving wasn't an easy leave either. It was a rival gang against my family, and I felt I would put my family's life in danger if I told. And I actually blamed myself for ditching in the first place. And I put myself in a position that not only harms me, but that could come back to my family. And they could shoot up my grandmother's house. So I was left with no choice but to deal with it. And because they already had the knowledge that I wasn't believed prior to, they used that completely against me.
They assume no one's going to believe you. They assume. And so, again, let's just frame all of these pieces together.
Mm-hmm.
You are 12.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 12 years old, very far away from being a fully formed woman, very far away, I think, from being able to sort of process all these things coming at you. I mean, when you're 12, you still believe in the world. You expect people are going to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
So you are 12. You are in this situation because of a purported friendship with somebody who knew about your history, knew that you were vulnerable in this way. And this, by the way, is something that traffickers target. They target the vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
and people who are looking for affirmation and protection and validation.
Mm-hmm.
So they know they know you weren't believed before.
Mm-hmm.
The traffickers are a part of a gang, a violent gang known in the community. They know who you are. They know who your family is.
Mm-hmm.
You're afraid of retribution. 3 years, 12 to 15.
Mm-hmm. That's a long time.
What are those years like? What are they making you do? What's happening in your life?
I'm a product, right? And I kind of accepted, okay, this is what's going to happen to me. I'm either going to be killed or I'm going to be sold overseas, which I believe one of the girls was sold overseas off the Long Beach port, or I'm going to die. Harm could come to me even if I tried to tell. I actually told a police officer. I remember telling a police officer what was going on because I did not. It was a transaction that I was very, very afraid of going into, and the police officer ended up telling the trafficker.
Wait,
I got, yeah.
What were the circumstances under which you told the police officer? Did you go to the police? How did that engagement, how did you come to tell him that this had happened?
So the school that I went to, it's usually surrounded by at least 2 or 3 police cars. And so there's always someone around. And so what I did was, instead of going out the side gate that I normally go out of, I went a different way, and I left a little bit early and thought, maybe if I can get the attention of this police officer and let him know what is happening, that I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe they'll take me home, and then I can just get checked out of the school and I don't have to come back. I was thinking all kind of things, or maybe they can arrest the traffickers and like I could be but free of all of this. And that wasn't the case, unfortunately.
So how does the police officer end up telling the trafficker? And so is the trafficker this young kid that they put in the schools who won't, is that the one who's keeping an eye on you, the 16-year-old or something, who's not so much older that he will attract suspicion?
He was on campus very often, but the grown men, they would be outside far enough to where it's not a red flag to any authority. However, they were in eye shot. It's just sitting in the car. So they watched, they paid attention to when you're supposed to come out, what time you're supposed to come out, and where you're supposed to be.
This is middle school?
Yeah.
There are so many parts of your story that are emblematic of abject failures, and abject failures in the way that we treat young girls, abject failures in the way that we treat young Black girls, who I think are subject to an entirely different set of pressures and hypersexualization by others and neglect. And so I'm trying to get my head around what's happening with the folks at the middle school who are seeing a bunch of grown-ass men sitting outside waiting for these girls to come out of school, like get out of class. Like, that is a picture that we all need to digest for a second. So I listened to an interview with you where you talked about how these traffickers would put you, a kid, on the bus and just kind of send you across town.
Mm-hmm.
For people who are not from LA, South LA is a bit east, southeast, if you're thinking downtown LA, a little bit near there. On the other end of town is the Palisades and Malibu and the West Side. This interview that I listened to you give, they sent you all over town, to the Palisades, to Beverly Hills,
Mm-hmm.
to wherever there was somebody who was ready and willing to abuse a child.
The 3Bs. Yeah, Bel Air, Brentwood, Beverly Hills. Mm-hmm. I always say it's like hidden in plain sight. People are so focused on what's going on in their world and in their life that they're not really paying attention to their surroundings, paying attention to kids, paying attention. And usually when I caught the bus, I would have somebody come with me. So it was more than likely a younger person, like a Romeo. But that only happened when the actual trafficker, it was hot in the area. And the best thing that they could do is send me on the bus. But I never went anywhere by myself. I was always being watched. And unfortunately, you couldn't tell the bus driver. You can't really tell the adults. And the thing is like, do you want to tell the adults? Because at this time, there's a level of environmental, psychological conditioning and programming that I have completely embodied, that my life and my value is solely for the purpose of a product for men's pleasure. And if I'm lucky, I might get one of them to take care of me and help me get out or help me pay for college or whatever. But the conditioning that happened, why tell somebody when you won't be believed? That's conditioning. Why tell authority when they'll just turn you back into the hands of your trafficker? And the amount of abuse you would get for that, it's almost not worth it. And even the certain type of branding, which I ended up not getting until a little bit later, is still a level of conditioning of I don't belong to myself. I don't belong to myself. So for the sake of my safety, you kind of do what you're told to do.
What happens when you talk to that police officer that results in him going back and ratting you out to your trafficker? How does that happen, Keyonna?
It happens because he was a customer. He was a client.
The police officer was a client.
Yes. Was a client.
You know, you talk about things being hidden in plain sight,
Mm-hmm.
and we heard so much for so long, and maybe still will if we don't allow the story of those victims to be buried, about the Epstein victims and the Epstein files. And people, I think a lot of people were astonished and really shocked by the magnitude of that trafficking and the magnitude of that abuse. And I think also like sort of the corridors in which it lived.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, this is happening in so many communities in the United States of America, to so many women. And your story really touched me in particular because when you described some of these places, like the Santa Monica Pier was a place where they'd be trafficked. I mean, that's where I went for fun as a kid. I still might these days, right? If somebody's in town, like my image of my sensibility of these landmarks, you know, are places of fun and vibrance. And interview where you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they go. They go to the pier and they go look for ways to abuse girls and find girls to abuse in that place, which is why it was kind of jarring for me. The last time I was at the pier, I was riding a roller coaster, and then I'm thinking about some child who was being set up for trafficking there. You are in this situation for 3 years, from 12 to 15. How do you get out? Join me next week for part 2 of Keyonna's story.